A crash landing on Aurora. The sleek silver spacecraft sliced through the lavender atmosphere of Aurora, its hull gleaming under the light of the twin suns. Inside the cockpit, Frank's hands gripped the controls tightly, his jaw clenched as warning lights flashed ominously across the console. "Come on, baby," he muttered under his breath, fighting to keep the ship steady. His heart raced. Something was very wrong. The spires of Aurora's capital loomed ahead, a breathtaking vista of crystalline towers and floating platforms, but Frank had no time to admire the view. Smoke billowed from the ship's right thruster as it plummeted toward the planet's surface. As the ground rushed up to meet him, Frank's muscles strained against the controls. Years of special forces training kicked in as he assessed his options. The ship was going down, but he might still be able to guide it to a relatively soft landing. He braced himself for impact, knowing that his life was about to change dramatically. The ship slammed into the purple soil of Aurora, skidding and tumbling in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. When it finally came to a stop, an eerie silence fell over the wreckage. Dazed and disoriented, Frank struggled to focus as blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. He fumbled with his harness, his fingers clumsy. Suddenly, the cockpit hatch hissed open, and blinding light poured in, momentarily dazzling him. As his vision cleared, Frank found himself staring into the most captivating pair of eyes he'd ever seen. The woman before him had vibrant violet irises flecked with gold, and her lavender skin glowed in the sunlight. She had a perfectly proportioned figure that made Frank's breath catch in his throat. "Are you all right, Earthling?" she asked, her musical voice tinged with concern. That was quite a dramatic entrance. Taking her hand, he allowed her to help him from the wreckage, swaying slightly as he got to his feet. "I'm Frank," he managed, still taking in her stunning features. "I am Trier, lead researcher of the Aruan Institute of Xenobiology," she replied, a small smile curving her lips. "Welcome to Aria, though I must say, your arrival was most unexpected." Frank's gaze traveled over her form-fitting bodysuit, taking in every curve. He forced himself to focus. "I'm here on a diplomatic mission from Earth. My ship malfunctioned on entry." Trier's eyes lit up with fascination. "How intriguing. We've had little contact with Earthlings. This presents a unique research opportunity." She circled him slowly, her gaze clinical yet somehow sensual as she examined every detail of his appearance. Frank felt a shiver run down his spine. "Your physiology is quite remarkable," Trier mused, her voice soft and filled with wonder. "So similar to our own, and yet," she reached out, trailing a finger along his stubbled jaw, sending a jolt of electricity through him. "Ah, thank you," Frank said, his throat suddenly dry. "Listen, I should probably contact my superiors and let them know what happened." "Oh, but you're injured," Trier said, gesturing to the cut on his forehead. "And your ship is clearly non-functional. Please allow me to offer you shelter and medical attention. My laboratory is nearby." Frank hesitated, his mission parameters clear in his mind. Make official contact through proper channels. Yet the allure of spending more time with this enchanting alien woman was hard to resist. "I suppose that would be all right," he said finally. "At least until I can arrange alternative transport." Trier's smile widened, her excitement palpable. "Excellent. I'm most eager to assist you." As they walked toward a sleek hovering vehicle, Frank couldn't shake the feeling that he was entering dangerous territory. But gazing at Trier's mesmerizing form, he found he didn't care. The laboratory was a marvel of alien technology, all smooth curves and pulsing lights. Frank's eyes darted around, taking in the strange equipment and holographic displays, but his gaze kept returning to Trier as she gracefully moved about the space. "Please make yourself comfortable," she said, gesturing to a contoured examination table. "I'll tend to your injury." Frank hesitated. "Is that really necessary? It's just a small cut." Trier's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Are you frightened, Earthling? I assure you, my touch will be gentle." There was something in her tone that made Frank's pulse quicken. He settled onto the table, hyper-aware of Tria's proximity as she leaned in to examine his forehead. She murmured. The wound appears superficial. Still, best to be thorough. She pressed a small device to his skin, and Frank felt a cool tingle as the cut sealed itself, leaving unblemished flesh behind. There, Tria said softly. Good as new. Her fingers lingered on his face, tracing the line of his cheekbone. Your coloration is quite striking, Tria observed, and then she reached out, running her fingers through his short brown locks. We Aruans shed our cranial filaments centuries ago. Is it functional? Frank chuckled nervously. Not really. Just decorative, I guess. Tria's hand slid down to his chest, feeling the firm muscle beneath his uniform. Fascinating. Your species clearly prioritizes physical development. We Aruans have largely moved beyond such concerns. Is that so? Frank managed, painfully aware of her touch. You seem pretty, well-developed to me. Tria's lips curved into a coy smile. Why, thank you, Frank. I must admit, I've always been curious about more primal forms of existence. Perhaps you could educate me. Frank swallowed hard. This was rapidly spiraling out of control. He needed to regain his composure and remember his mission. Actually, he said gently, removing her hand, I should probably contact my superiors and let them know I'm all right. Disappointment flickered in Tria's eyes, quickly masked. Of course. How inconsiderate of me to delay you. Please, use our communications array. She guided him to a holographic console, and Frank input the encrypted coordinates for his liaison. Relaxing slightly as the familiar face of Commander Chen appeared, he quickly explained the situation, aware of Tria listening intently nearby. Chen's expression grew grave. This complicates matters, he said. The Aruan High Council is quite particular about official protocols. Your unscheduled arrival could be seen as a breach. I understand, sir, Frank replied. How should I proceed? Chen sighed. For now, maintain your cover as a cultural attaché. I'll work diplomatic channels to smooth things over. With luck, we can salvage the mission. Check in daily for updates. Yes, sir, Frank said, the transmission ending and leaving him alone once more with Tria's piercing gaze. It seems you'll be our guest for a while longer, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. How fortunate. There's so much I wish to learn about you. Frank forced a smile, unsure whether to be thrilled or terrified by the prospect. I look forward to cultural exchange, but maybe we could start with a tour. I'd love to see more of your world. Tria's eyes lit up. An excellent suggestion. There's so much to show you. But I must warn you, our Aruan society may seem quite alien to your Earth sensibilities. As they stepped out into the vibrant alien cityscape, Frank's head spun with the sights and sounds. He was acutely aware of Tria's closeness, the warmth of her touch lingering on his arm. Whatever happened next, he had a feeling his mission was about to get a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting. Tria led Frank through the bustling streets of the Aruan capital, her hand still resting lightly on his arm. The city was a marvel of alien architecture, soaring crystal spires, graceful arches, and hovering platforms connected by shimmering energy bridges. This is incredible. Frank breathed, craning his neck to take it all in. Your technology is far beyond anything we have on Earth. Tria's lips curved in a small smile. We have millennia to perfect our sciences, though I must admit we may have lost something in the process. What do you mean? Frank asked, intrigued. She gestured to the Aruans around them, tall, elegant beings with purple skin in varying shades, but there was something oddly uniform about their expressions and movements. We've bred out many of the baser instincts that once drove our species, Tria explained. Aggression, lust, even strong emotion, all considered evolutionary holdovers, unnecessary for an advanced civilization. Frank frowned. That sounds lonely. Tria's eyes met his, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Perhaps, but it's all we've known for generations, until now. Before Frank could ponder the implications of that statement, they rounded a corner into a vast open plaza. At its center stood an imposing structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. The Hall of Science, Troya announced proudly, heart of Aruan research and innovation. Would you like to see inside? Frank nodded eagerly, following her up the sweeping steps. As they passed through the shimmering force field at the entrance, he felt a tingling sensation wash over his skin. Decontamination field, Troya explained. Can't have any pesky earth microbes contaminating our sterile environments. Inside, the hall was a hive of activity. Aruan scientists moved purposefully between workstations, manipulating complex holograms and tending to strange, pulsating machines. This is where I spend most of my time, Troya said, leading him to a private lab off the main floor. My specialty is xenobiology, the study of alien life forms. Turning to face him, her eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. And now I have a prime specimen right here in my lab. Frank swallowed hard. When you say specimen. Troya laughed, a musical sound that sent shivers down his spine. Oh, don't worry. I won't dissect you, much. She gestured to a contoured examination table. Please make yourself comfortable. I'd like to perform a few basic scans, if you don't mind. Purely for scientific purposes, of course. Frank hesitated. This wasn't exactly standard diplomatic procedure, but the eager light in Troya's eyes was hard to resist. I suppose it couldn't hurt, he said, settling onto the table. As long as you promise to be gentle. Troya's smile widened. Oh, I'll be very gentle. At first, she activated a hovering array of sensors that began to circle Frank's body, bathing him in soft blue light. Troya studied the readouts intently, occasionally making small sounds of interest. Fascinating, she murmured. Your musculature is far more developed than the average Aruan, and your hormone levels. She raised an eyebrow, glancing at him with a hint of mischief. Quite potent. Frank felt heat rise to his cheeks. Well, I try to stay in shape. Troya's gaze swept over him appreciatively. Indeed, your physical form is most impressive. Her hand came to rest on his chest, feeling the steady thump of his heart. Such a strong cardiovascular system. Frank's pulse quickened at her touch. Troya, he said hoarsely, I'm not sure this is entirely appropriate. She tilted her head, regarding him seriously. Oh, are such examinations taboo on Earth? How intriguing. Please tell me more about your cultural norms regarding physical contact. Frank cleared his throat. Well, it's not exactly taboo, but usually there's a bit more context. Dinner, dancing, that sort of thing. Troya's eyes lit up. Courtship rituals. We had something similar long ago. How quaint that your species still engages in such behaviors. She leaned in closer, her breath warm against his ear. Perhaps you could demonstrate these rituals for me, for scientific purposes, of course. Frank's head swam with her proximity, the intoxicating scent of her skin filling his senses. It took all his willpower to gently push her back. Look, Troya, you're incredibly beautiful, and believe me, I'm tempted. But I'm here on a diplomatic mission. I can't risk complicating things. Disappointment flickered across her features, quickly masked. Of course. How foolish of me to forget myself. Please forgive my inappropriate behavior. She stepped back, resuming a more professional demeanor. Let's continue the tour, shall we? There's much more to see. As they left the lab, Frank couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly avoided falling into a very pleasurable trap. But looking at Troya's graceful form ahead of him, he wondered if he had made the right choice after all. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of alien wonders. Troya showed him marvels of Aruan technology that boggled the mind. Matter replicators, zero-point energy generators, and even primitive time manipulation devices. But through it all, Frank found his attention constantly drawn back to his alluring guide. There was something about Troya that fascinated him beyond her physical beauty, a spark of curiosity, a hint of rebelliousness that seemed at odds with the logical, emotionless demeanor of most Aruans. As the twin suns began to set, bathing the crystalline city in hues of purple and gold, Traya led him to a secluded observation deck high above the streets. "I often come here to think," she said softly, gazing out at the breathtaking vista, "to ponder the mysteries of the universe." Frank leaned against the railing, the view mesmerizing. It was hard to believe he was on an alien planet, standing beside a captivating alien woman. "What do you think about?" he asked, glancing sideways at her. "Everything," Traya replied, her voice distant as she watched the skies. "Our place in the cosmos, our future as a species, and what it means to feel." Frank felt a connection spark between them, an understanding that transcended words. "You know, humans have always been defined by our emotions," he said carefully. "It drives us, motivates us, and sometimes it complicates our lives." Traya turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps that is why we find you so fascinating, Earthling. You embrace your emotions, even the darker ones. It makes you unpredictable." "Unpredictable can be dangerous," Frank said, his heart racing, "but it can also lead to great things." "Like what?" Traya asked, her interest piqued. "Like love," Frank replied, the word hanging in the air between them. Traya studied him, her violet eyes searching his face. "Love. It's an emotion we have long since evolved beyond, yet you seem to carry it with you everywhere." "It's part of who we are," Frank said, feeling a strange sense of vulnerability. "We fight for it, we cherish it, and sometimes we make sacrifices because of it." As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, the stars began to twinkle above, casting a serene glow over the city. Traya stepped closer, the warmth of her presence enveloping him. "Perhaps, Earthling, you could teach me about this." "Love," she whispered. Frank's breath caught in his throat as he realized the gravity of her words. In that moment, he understood that their worlds were colliding in ways he had never anticipated. The mission he had come for was already shifting, and the allure of the unknown beckoned him forward into the depths of a new adventure, one filled with wonder, challenge, and perhaps a love that could bridge the gap between their two worlds. The cultural exchange. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, it painted the crystal towers of Arua in hues of gold and pink, creating a breathtaking scene that was almost otherworldly. Frank awoke in the guest quarters of Traya's laboratory, still reeling from the events of the previous day. The ship crash, his unexpected arrival, and the fascinating alien woman who had captivated him all felt like a whirlwind, and now he was faced with the task of a cultural exchange that had the potential to change both their worlds forever. He looked around the room, taking in the high-tech equipment surrounding him. Holographic displays flickered with intricate designs, and strange devices hummed softly on the tables, each one a testament to the Aruan civilization's advanced knowledge. Despite the alien surroundings, he felt a strange sense of comfort. Perhaps it was the prospect of spending more time with Traya, or maybe it was the allure of discovering a culture so vastly different from his own. After a quick shower, Frank dressed in a clean uniform that had been provided for him. He stepped out into the main lab area, where he found Traya waiting for him, her lavender skin glowing softly in the morning light. "Good morning, Earthling," she exclaimed, her voice bright and cheerful. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I expected," Frank replied, a smile breaking through his initial hesitation. The excitement of the day ahead filled him with anticipation. "I've been thinking about what we discussed last night." "About love?" Traya asked, tilting her head slightly, her violet eyes wide with curiosity. "Yeah," he said, feeling the weight of the word. "I'd like to share more about human emotions and relationships, starting with friendship." "Friendship," Traya echoed, her brow furrowing slightly as if trying to understand the concept. "How does it differ from companionship?" Frank considered her question, realizing just how complex human relationships could be. Companionship is about being together, but friendship goes deeper. Friends support each other, share experiences, and sometimes they challenge one another. Interesting, Trier said, nodding as she processed his words. Do you have many friends on Earth? Frank thought for a moment, picturing the faces of those he held dear. Yes, I do. Friends are like family. They stand by you during tough times and celebrate with you during good ones. Trier's expression shifted to one of fascination. We have bonds of loyalty, but they lack the emotional depth you describe. I would like to experience this. Friendship. Can we be friends? Of course, Frank said, feeling a warmth spread through him at the thought. How about we start today? We can explore the city together, just as friends. I would like that very much, Trier replied, her violet eyes sparkling with excitement. Let's discover the wonders of our world. As they stepped outside, the bustling streets of the Aruan capital greeted them. Frank felt a rush of anticipation. The city was alive with color and energy, a vibrant tapestry woven from the threads of Aruan culture. The architecture was astonishing. Soaring crystal spires glimmered in the sunlight, while graceful arches and floating platforms connected various districts, creating an ethereal atmosphere. This is incredible, Frank breathed, craning his neck to take it all in. Your technology is far beyond anything we have on Earth. Trier smiled, clearly pleased with his admiration. We had millennia to perfect our sciences, but I must admit, we may have lost something in the process. What do you mean? Frank asked, intrigued. Trier gestured to the Aruans around them, tall, elegant beings with purple skin in varying shades. We have bred out many of the baser instincts that once drove our species, she explained. Aggression, lust, even strong emotion, all considered evolutionary holdovers, unnecessary for an advanced civilization. Frank frowned, digesting her words. That sounds lonely. Perhaps, Trier replied, her eyes softening. But it's all we've known for generations, until now. Before Frank could ponder the implications of that statement, they rounded a corner into a vast open plaza. At its center stood an imposing structure made of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. This is a hall of culture, Trier announced proudly. It is where we celebrate our history and share knowledge. Frank nodded, feeling a sense of pride for her culture. I'd love to see it. As they entered the hall of culture, Frank was struck by the sheer magnitude of the space. The interior was filled with holographic displays showcasing Aruan history, art, and technological advancements. Interactive exhibits allowed visitors to experience significant events in Aruan history, and Frank could hardly contain his excitement as he wandered from one display to another. This is remarkable, he said, pointing to a holographic map that showcased the evolution of Aruan society. You have documented everything so thoroughly. Documentation is vital for our society, Trier explained. It allows us to learn from our past and build a better future. But I am curious, how do humans document their history? We have books, films, and digital records, Frank replied. But it's often the stories that matter most. We pass down tales from generation to generation, sharing lessons and experiences. Trier looked at him with keen interest. Tales. Can you tell me one? Frank hesitated, unsure where to begin. Sure, there's one about a hero who fought against great odds to save his people. It's called The Tale of the Brave Knight. Tell me, Trier urged, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. With a smile, Frank began to recount the story of the brave knight who faced impossible challenges, battled fearsome beasts, and ultimately triumphed against the odds. As he spoke, he noticed how engaged Trier was, leaning in closer, her expression filled with awe. He could see that the tale resonated with her, perhaps igniting something deep within her that had been dormant for too long. Your stories are powerful, she said when he finished. They evoke strong emotions. I wish we had such traditions among the Aruans. Frank nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie building between them. Stories help us connect with one another to understand our shared humanity. Trier's expression turned contemplative. Perhaps we could develop our own traditions, inspired by your stories." "I'd like that," Frank said. "Together, we can create something beautiful." After exploring the whole of culture, Trier led Frank to a bustling market filled with exotic fruits, vibrant textiles, and strange wares. "This is the heart of our culture," she explained. "Here we exchange not only goods but ideas." Frank marveled at the array of colors and scents that assaulted his senses. Aruan merchants called out, showcasing their unique products, each one a testament to their creativity and craftsmanship. Trier picked up a small, glowing fruit and offered it to Frank. "This is a luma fruit. It's sweet and full of energy." Taking a cautious bite, Frank was surprised by the explosion of flavors on his tongue. "Wow, this is amazing. What else do you have?" Trier beamed with pride. "Follow me. There's so much more to see." She guided him through the market, pointing out various items, from shimmering fabrics that changed colors to intricate gadgets that whirred and clicked. As they wandered, Frank couldn't help but notice the way Trier interacted with her fellow Aruans. She greeted them with warmth and enthusiasm, laughing and exchanging friendly banter. It struck him how she embodied the very essence of friendship he had described earlier. "Do you see?" Trier said, turning to him as they stopped to admire a stall filled with dazzling jewelry. "This is friendship in our culture. We may not express it with emotions, but we share moments like these. It's a different kind of bond." Frank smiled, touched by her understanding. "Yes, it is, and I think you're doing great at it." After exploring the market, they found a small cafe that overlooked the bustling streets. "Let's take a break," Trier suggested, gesturing for them to sit at a table adorned with vibrant flowers. As they sipped on refreshing beverages, an alien concoction that Trier promised would give Frank energy, he looked out at the lively scene before him. "I feel like I'm part of something special here," he admitted, turning to Trier. "This exchange has opened my eyes to so much." "You've brought a new perspective to our world," she said, her tone earnest. "Your stories, your emotions, they challenge us to reconsider what it means to be Aruan." Frank felt a rush of warmth at her words. "And you've opened my eyes to the beauty of your culture. I never imagined I could learn so much from you." The afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the plaza as they continued their conversation. The exchange of ideas, cultures, and stories was just beginning, and Frank felt a deepening connection with Trier, a connection that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. "Let's make a pact," Frank said suddenly, inspired. "As friends, let's promise to teach each other everything we can. I want to know more about your culture, your history, and your people." "Agreed," Trier exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "And I want to learn more about your Earth, your stories, your emotions, your experiences." With a sense of determination, Frank raised his glass in a toast. "To friendship and understanding." "To friendship and understanding," Trier echoed, clinking her glass against his. As they laughed and talked, the sun set behind the crystal towers, casting the city into a tapestry of purple and gold. Frank realized that this journey was far more than just a mission. It was an exploration of the heart, a discovery of what it meant to connect with another being in a profound way. With Trier by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, eager to learn and grow in a world that had suddenly become a little bit brighter. The deepening bond. As night fell over Arua, the city transformed into a breathtaking spectacle of light and sound. Frank and Trier ventured out of the cafe, their spirits buoyed by the day's explorations and shared stories. The streets glimmered with luminescent flowers that lit up the pathways, casting a magical glow on their surroundings. "Welcome to the night festival," Trier announced, her excitement palpable as they approached the bustling plaza. "It's a celebration of unity and the beauty of life. We honor our connections with each other and the universe." Frank's eyes widened in awe as he took in the vibrant scene. The plaza was alive with Aruans of all shapes and sizes, adorned in colorful garments that flowed like liquid fabric. Colorful banners swayed in the gentle breeze, and the air was filled with the enticing aroma of delicacies being cooked at various stalls. Laughter and music mingled together, creating a symphony of joy that resonated deep within him. "This is incredible," Frank exclaimed, his heart racing with the vibrant energy around him. "What happens during the festival?" "Tonight, we share stories, dance, and celebrate," Trya explained, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You'll see." As they wandered through the crowd, Frank couldn't help but notice how the Aruans interacted. They embraced each other warmly, laughter echoing in the air, and the warmth of friendship seemed to wrap around him like a cozy blanket. It reminded him of home, of the warmth of family gatherings and the joyous celebrations of Earth. "Here," Trey said, leading into a stage where performers dazzled the crowd with their artistry. A group of musicians played harmonious melodies on instruments that looked like a fusion of string and wind instruments. Their music filled the air with enchanting rhythms that seemed to resonate with the very heartbeat of the festival. "Let's join them," Trya urged, pulling him toward the edge of the stage. "Do you think I can?" Frank asked, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Of course, just follow my lead," she said with a reassuring smile. As they stepped onto the stage, the musicians welcomed them with open arms. Trya began to sway gently to the rhythm, her movements fluid and graceful. Frank felt a rush of exhilaration as he joined her, letting the music guide him. He was surprised at how easily he fell into the rhythm, the infectious energy of the crowd encouraging him to let go of his inhibitions. "See, it's easy," Trya laughed, her voice bright above the music. He couldn't help but smile back at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of joy and connection. They danced together, surrounded by the vibrant atmosphere, their laughter intertwining with the melody. In that moment, Frank felt a bond forming, a shared experience that transcended words and cultural barriers. After several songs, the musicians took a break, and the crowd cheered for more. Trya turned to Frank, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "That was amazing. You danced wonderfully." "Thanks. I've had a few lessons back on Earth," Frank replied, still buzzing from the exhilaration. "But I think I might have just been inspired by you." Trya's eyes sparkled with delight. "Let's grab some food. You must try the festival delicacies." They wove their way through the crowd to a bustling food stall where an array of colorful dishes was displayed. Frank's mouth watered as he observed the tantalizing options. "What do you recommend?" he asked, scanning the vibrant spread. "Everything is delicious," Trya replied enthusiastically. "But you must try the chulo wraps. They're made with a spiced vegetable blend and are served with a zesty sauce. It's a favorite among our people." Frank nodded, entranced by her passion. "Sounds perfect." As they ordered, Trya chatted animatedly with the vendors, exchanging laughter and friendly banter. Frank watched her interact, noticing how effortlessly she connected with everyone around her. It made him appreciate her even more, realizing that her warmth and charm transcended cultural differences. With their food in hand, they found a cozy spot near a fountain that sparkled under the night sky. The sound of flowing water added to the ambience, creating a serene backdrop to their feast. Frank took a bite of the chulo wrap and was immediately captivated by the explosion of flavors. "This is amazing," he exclaimed, savoring each bite. "I'm glad you like it," Trya said, enjoying her own wrap. "Food is a way to connect with others. We often share meals during celebrations to strengthen our bonds." "That's true for us too," Frank said, his mind drifting back to family dinners and gatherings. Food has a way of bringing people together. They continued to share their experiences over the meal, delving deeper into their backgrounds and beliefs. Trya shared stories of her upbringing, how she had always been fascinated by Earth and the tales of its people. "I've always wanted to learn more about your world," she said, her voice earnest. "You have so much emotion, so many layers. It's intriguing." Frank felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "And I've learned so much from you already. Your perspective on life is refreshing, and it challenges me to think differently." As they finished their meal, Frank noticed how the stars twinkled brightly above them, a blanket of shimmering lights that seemed to reflect the joy of the festival below. "It's beautiful here," he said, looking up at the night sky. "It is," Triya agreed, gazing up as well. "And tonight is especially significant. We honor the stars for guiding us and reminding us of our place in the universe." Suddenly, the crowd began to gather for a special performance. Frank and Triya joined them, curiosity piqued. A group of dancers adorned in radiant costumes took the stage, their movements synchronized in a mesmerizing display. The music swelled, and Frank found himself entranced by the artistry unfolding before him. The dancers told a story of unity and harmony, their bodies flowing together like water, a celebration of life itself. "Do you see?" Triya leaned in closer, her breath warm against his ear. "This is what our festival is all about, celebrating our connections with one another." Frank nodded, captivated not only by the performance, but also by Triya's closeness. Her presence felt electric, and he could sense the unspoken bond between them deepening. As the dance came to an end, the crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the plaza. Triya turned to Frank, her face alight with joy. "What did you think?" "It was incredible," Frank said, his heart racing. "I've never seen anything like it. You all have such a rich culture." "Thank you," she replied, her eyes shining. "It means a lot to share this with you." Feeling emboldened by the night and the connection they were building, Frank took a breath, deciding to share something personal. "You know, I've always been a bit of a loner back on Earth. It's been difficult to find genuine connections." Triya's expression softened, her empathy evident. "I understand. Our societies can be isolating in different ways, but tonight, I feel like we're bridging that gap. You're not alone anymore, Frank." His heart swelled at her words. "That means a lot to me. I think I found a friend in you." She smiled brightly, her lavender skin glowing in the festival lights. "And I found a friend in you as well. Together, we can learn from each other, share our stories, and create something beautiful." As the night deepened, they found themselves wandering back to the central plaza, the festival still in full swing. Triya took Frank's hand, leading him through the crowd as they moved from one stall to another, sampling delicacies and enjoying the atmosphere. "Now it's time for the final celebration," Triya announced, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "The light of unity. It's a special moment when we all come together to reflect on our connections and the future." Frank watched as the crowd gathered around a large crystal structure that towered in the center of the plaza. It was adorned with luminescent flowers and twinkling lights. As the music shifted to a slower, more melodic tune, the atmosphere grew solemn yet hopeful. The Aurans began to join hands, forming a circle around the crystal. Frank looked at Triya, who smiled warmly at him. "Come, join us," she said, taking his hand and pulling him into the circle. As they stood among the gathered Aurans, the crystal began to glow brightly, illuminating the night. The crowd swayed gently, their voices rising in harmony as they sang a song of unity. Frank felt a powerful energy enveloping him, a sense of belonging that he had not experienced in a long time. He looked at Triya, her expression serene and filled with emotion, and he realized that this was more than just a festival. It was a profound expression of connection, not only to each other but also to the universe itself. In that moment, he understood that their cultural exchange was not just about sharing stories and traditions. It was about weaving their lives together, bridging the gap between their worlds. As the final notes of the song echoed through the plaza, Frank felt a rush of gratitude. He had come to Arua on a mission, but what he had found was so much more. A friendship that transcended worlds, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect with someone who truly saw him. As the festival drew to a close and the crowd began to disperse, Frank and Triya remained, still holding hands. The bond between them felt unbreakable, and he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. "Thank you for tonight, Triya," Frank said softly, his heart full. "I'll never forget this." "Nor will I, Frank," she replied, squeezing his hand gently. "This is just the beginning of our journey together." As they stood beneath the stars, Frank felt a sense of hope and excitement for what the future would hold, an adventure filled with friendship, discovery, and perhaps even love. New challenges ahead. The next morning dawned bright and clear over the vibrant city of Arua, the twin suns casting a golden hue that illuminated the crystalline structures around Frank. He awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, his mind still buzzing with memories of the previous night's festivities. The connections he had forged with Triya felt deeper than ever, and he was eager to share more about his world while continuing to learn from hers. As he stepped out of his guest quarters, the soft hum of alien technology filled the air. Frank found Triya waiting for him in the main lab, her lavender skin glowing softly in the morning light, her violet eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Good morning, Earthling," she greeted him with a warm smile. "Are you ready for another day of exploration?" "Absolutely," Frank replied, mirroring her excitement. "I've been thinking about what we can do next. I want to show you more about Earth and our traditions. How about we create our own traditions together?" Triya tilted her head in curiosity, her interest piqued. "What do you have in mind?" "Let's start with our holidays," Frank suggested, his mind racing with ideas. "Back on Earth, we have many celebrations that bring people together, like Thanksgiving, which is about gratitude and sharing meals with family and friends." "Thanksgiving," Triya repeated, her brow furrowing slightly. "What does it entail?" "It's a time when we gather with loved ones, share a feast, and express our gratitude for what we have," Frank explained. "We tell stories, reflect on the past year, and celebrate our connections with each other. It's a beautiful tradition." "Fascinating. We have celebrations too, but they focus more on communal achievements and scientific progress," Triya responded thoughtfully. "Perhaps we could combine the essence of your Thanksgiving with our traditions of unity and discovery." Frank smiled, inspired by her idea. "I'd love that. We could create a new holiday that celebrates friendship and learning between our two cultures. What should we call it?" "How about the Day of Unity?" Triya suggested, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "It can be a day where we share stories, meals, and learn about one another's cultures." "That sounds perfect," Frank agreed, feeling a rush of enthusiasm. "Let's plan it out. We can prepare traditional foods from both Earth and Arua, share our stories, and invite others to join us in celebrating our friendship." "Excellent. I will arrange for the ingredients we need, and you can share recipes from your culture," Triya said, clapping her hands together in delight. "This will be a wonderful opportunity to strengthen our bonds." With a newfound sense of collaboration, they set to work. Frank shared his favorite recipes, explaining the significance of each dish. He spoke of roasted turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie, and Triya listened intently, jotting down notes and asking questions. "And what about drinks?" Triya asked. "Do you have special beverages for your celebrations?" "Definitely. We often have apple cider and various fruit juices," Frank replied. "For Thanksgiving, we usually enjoy sweet drinks that complement the meal." "Wonderful. I will gather some local Aruan fruits and see how we can create a unique beverage that blends our cultures," Triya said, her enthusiasm infectious. As they prepared for their new tradition, Frank felt a sense of excitement building within him. He was forging a connection not just with Triya, but with her entire culture. However, amidst this excitement, Frank couldn't shake the underlying tension of his original mission, establishing diplomatic relations between Earth and Arua. As they continued their planning, Frank's communicator chimed. He glanced down, his heart sinking slightly as he saw Commander Chen's name flashing on the screen. "I need to take this," he said, stepping away from the lab momentarily. "Of course," Triya replied, her expression shifting to one of understanding. Frank activated the communicator. "Commander Chen, I'm here," he said, his voice steady. "Agent Harrison, we need to discuss your situation on Arua," Chen said, his tone serious. We're concerned about your unscheduled arrival and the potential diplomatic fallout. The High Council is not pleased with how things have unfolded. Frank's stomach tightened. I understand, sir. I'm working to establish a positive relationship here, and I have made significant progress in my cultural exchange with the Aruans. While that is commendable, you must remember that your primary mission is to maintain protocol. The Council has strict guidelines regarding contact with extraterrestrial species. They may see your actions as a breach of trust, Chen warned. I'm aware of the protocols, sir, Frank replied, feeling the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. But I believe this friendship with Troya and our cultural exchange could help strengthen our relationship with Arua. It's a unique opportunity. While I appreciate your enthusiasm, you need to report back to the embassy immediately, Chen instructed. The Council wants to meet with you to discuss how to proceed. Understood, Commander, Frank said, swallowing hard. I'll comply. As the transmission ended, he returned to the lab, where Troya was examining various alien fruits. Her expression brightened when she saw him. What did the commander say? They want me to report back to the embassy, Frank replied, the disappointment evident in his voice. There are concerns about how my arrival has affected diplomatic relations. Troya's eyes widened in alarm. Is that serious? Possibly, Frank admitted, feeling a knot form in his stomach. I didn't intend to create any problems. I'm just trying to connect with your people and learn about your culture. I understand your intentions, Frank, Troya said, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. But the Council may not see it that way. They might view your presence as a potential threat to our societal balance. Exactly, Frank sighed. And I'm worried that if I leave, we'll lose the momentum we've built. The Day of Unity could be a turning point for both our worlds. Troya's expression shifted to one of determination. Then we must act quickly. We can't let this opportunity slip away. What if we present the idea of the Day of Unity to the Council? Show them that our cultures can benefit from this connection. Frank's heart raced at her suggestion. That could work. If I can demonstrate the value of our cultural exchange, it might help alleviate their concerns. Let's gather the materials we need to present our ideas, Troya urged, her eyes filled with purpose. We can show them how the Day of Unity embodies the spirit of collaboration. With a renewed sense of urgency, they began to prepare for their meeting with the Council. They gathered ingredients for the dishes Frank had shared and wrote down their ideas for the new holiday, highlighting the importance of friendship and cooperation. Frank felt a surge of hope as they worked together. He realized that this was more than just a cultural exchange. It was an opportunity to redefine how their two worlds could interact. If they could convince the High Council of the benefits of this newfound friendship, it could pave the way for a more profound connection between Earth and Arua. After hours of preparation, they stood before a shimmering holographic projector, which displayed their plans for the Day of Unity. Troya adjusted the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with excitement. "I think so," Frank replied, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. "Let's do this." As they made their way to the council chamber, Frank felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. This meeting could change everything: their friendship, the future of diplomatic relations, and the cultural exchange they had started. When they arrived, Frank found himself standing before a vast room filled with members of the Aruan High Council. The chamber was elegantly adorned with shimmering crystal pillars and intricate designs that reflected the light in mesmerizing patterns. The council members sat in a semicircle, their expressions serious as they regarded him. Agent Harrison, one of the elders, spoke, his voice deep and commanding. "You have disrupted our established protocols with your unscheduled arrival. What do you have to say for your actions?" Frank took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Esteemed members of the council, I understand your concerns. My arrival may have been unorthodox, but I assure you, my intentions are to foster understanding between our two species. I've formed a bond with Troya and learned so much about your culture. Together, We have developed a proposal for a new holiday, the Day of Unity. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions inscrutable. Day of Unity, the elder repeated, a hint of skepticism in his voice. What does this entail? Frank stepped forward, gesturing toward the holographic display that illuminated the room. This holiday would be a celebration of friendship and shared knowledge, allowing both Earthlings and Aruans to come together in a spirit of collaboration. We would share stories, food, and traditions to strengthen our bonds and promote understanding. Traya chimed in, her voice filled with passion. We believe this exchange can lead to a brighter future for both our peoples. By embracing our differences and learning from one another, we can create a lasting connection. The council members listened intently, their expressions gradually softening as Frank and Traya presented their ideas. Frank felt a sense of hope as he spoke, sharing the significance of friendship and the potential benefits of the cultural exchange. Are you suggesting that we abandon our protocols? Another council member asked, skepticism lacing his words. No, not at all, Frank replied, shaking his head. I respect your protocols and the history of your civilization. However, this new holiday can serve as a bridge between our worlds, enhancing our relationship rather than undermining it. The elder leaned back in his seat, contemplating Frank's words. You propose that this Day of Unity will allow for the exchange of culture and understanding without compromising our values. Exactly, Frank affirmed, feeling the energy in the room shift. It's a chance for us to learn from one another, to find common ground, and to strengthen our ties. We can build a future based on mutual respect and collaboration. After a tense silence, the elder finally nodded. Your proposal is intriguing. We will consider the merits of this Day of Unity, but know this, it is a delicate path you tread. Your friendship with Traya must be approached with caution. Frank's heart raced. Thank you, esteemed members of the council. I promise to respect your culture and work diligently to build this friendship. The council began to deliberate, and Frank could feel the weight of their decision. Traya stood beside him, her hand lightly resting on his arm, offering silent support. They had taken a significant step together, and he hoped it would lead to a brighter future for both their worlds. As the discussions continued, Frank felt a renewed sense of purpose. The potential for connection between Earth and Arua was within reach, and with Traya by his side, he was determined to see it through. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead and build a lasting friendship that would transcend the stars. A cultural exchange begins. As the days turned into weeks, anticipation for the Day of Unity grew in the vibrant city of Arua. The Aruan High Council had officially approved Frank and Traya's proposal, a significant milestone that had ignited excitement among both Earthlings and Aruans. This event would be a groundbreaking cultural exchange, marking the first time their two worlds would come together to celebrate their unique traditions and shared values. One sunny morning, Frank found himself bustling through the lively market alongside Traya, a sense of purpose driving them both. The colorful stalls, filled with exotic fruits, spices, and handmade crafts, buzzed with energy, and Frank couldn't help but smile as he took in the familiar sights and sounds. He was no longer an outsider. He felt a growing sense of belonging, a connection to this extraordinary place and its people. Today, we need to collect the ingredients for your dishes, Traya said, her tablet glowing with a list of items they needed. What else do you want to prepare besides the pumpkin pie? Love to make cranberry sauce and stuffing as well, Frank replied, recalling the scents and flavors that had always signaled the start of holiday festivities back home. Those dishes complement the turkey perfectly, and I think it will be exciting for the Aruans to experience them. Cranberry sauce, stuffing, Traya repeated, intrigued. I want to know more about the flavors and significance of these dishes. It's wonderful to incorporate your traditions into our celebration. Frank smiled at her enthusiasm. Well, cranberry sauce is sweet and tart, and it's made from fresh cranberries cooked down with sugar. It adds a burst of flavor to the meal, while stuffing, made with bread, herbs, and vegetables, provides a savory element. Together, they create a well-rounded feast. As they made their way through the market, Troya eagerly interacted with the vendors, asking about the various ingredients and how they could be used in their preparations. Frank watched in admiration as she expertly engaged with the Aruans, drawing them into the excitement of the upcoming event. At one stall, Troya picked up a vibrant, purple fruit that Frank had never seen before. "What is this?" she asked the vendor, her curiosity evident. "That is a Kali fruit," the vendor replied, beaming with pride. "It's sweet and rich in nutrients. Many Aruans enjoy it during celebrations." "Perfect," Troya exclaimed, looking at Frank. "We can incorporate it into a dessert for the Day of Unity. What do you think?" "I love it," Frank replied, his excitement bubbling over. "A Kali fruit dessert could be a great way to blend our traditions. It'll be a delicious surprise for everyone." As they continued gathering ingredients, Frank found himself feeling more connected to Troya than ever. They exchanged stories and laughter, their bond deepening with each passing moment. It was clear to Frank that this was not just a diplomatic mission anymore. It was about forging meaningful connections and creating a lasting friendship that spanned their two worlds. Once they had collected all the necessary items, they returned to Troya's laboratory, a whirlwind of ingredients and inspiration. Frank laid everything out on the sleek counters, marveling at the colors and textures before him. "This is going to be amazing," he said, glancing at Troya, who was already excitedly organizing the space. "Let's start with the pumpkin pie," Troya suggested, pulling out various tools and utensils that were foreign to Frank, but appeared to be essential for their culinary adventure. "Right. The first step is to make the pie crust," Frank explained, demonstrating how to mix flour, water, and a bit of salt to form the dough. He rolled it out carefully, and Troya watched with keen interest, eager to learn. "This is fascinating," Troya said, her eyes wide as Frank worked the dough. "I've never seen a dish prepared like this before. It's so hands-on." "Cooking is an art," Frank replied, enjoying her enthusiasm. "It requires patience and care, much like any other craft." Once they formed the crust and set it in a pie dish, Frank moved on to the filling, mixing together cooked pumpkin, sugar, spices, and eggs. As he whisked the ingredients together, he felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him, memories of family gatherings flooding back. "Now we pour the filling into the crust," he instructed, his heart full of excitement, "and then we bake it." Troya carefully placed the pie in the oven, her face aglow with pride. "This is going to be delicious," she exclaimed, a bright smile lighting up her face. While they waited for the pie to bake, they turned their attention to the cranberry sauce and stuffing. Frank explained each step as he worked, his passion for cooking evident in every movement. Troya eagerly joined in, and together they prepared the sauce, watching as the cranberries burst and simmered, releasing their sweet and tart aroma. "This smells incredible," Troya said, her eyes sparkling with delight. "I can't wait for our friends to taste it." "I hope they'll enjoy it as much as I do," Frank replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "And I want to show them how food can bring people together." As they moved on to the stuffing, Frank carefully explained the importance of the herbs and spices they were using. "Stuffing is all about flavor," he said, tossing bread cubes with sautéed vegetables, broth, and seasonings. "Each ingredient plays a part in creating a comforting, hearty dish." Troya listened intently, her expression a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "You have a gift for this, Frank. It's wonderful how you weave your culture into these meals." Frank felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "Thank you, Troya. But I couldn't have done this without you. Your enthusiasm and willingness to learn make this experience special." As the pie finished baking, the warm scent enveloped the lab, mingling with the aroma of the cranberry sauce and stuffing. Frank couldn't help but smile, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. They were creating something beautiful together, blending their cultures in a way that would resonate with both Earthlings and Aruans. Finally, After hours of preparation, the feast was ready. Frank and Troya carefully arranged the dishes on a large table, making sure everything looked inviting and colorful. They adorned the table with luminescent flowers that Troya had collected from the market, adding a touch of elegance to their spread. "It looks amazing," Troya exclaimed, stepping back to admire their work. "Thanks. I hope it tastes just as good," Frank replied, feeling a flutter of nervousness. "This is our first real cultural exchange, and I want it to be memorable." Troya placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It will be. We've poured our hearts into this celebration, and our friends will appreciate it." As they prepared for their guests, the door to the lab chimed, and several Aruans entered, their expressions filled with excitement and curiosity. "Welcome to the Day of Unity," Troya announced, beaming at her friends. The Aruans looked around in awe, taking in the colorful spread of food and the warm atmosphere that Frank and Troya had created. "What is this?" one of the guests asked, eyeing the pie with intrigue. "This is a fusion of Earth and Aruan traditions," Frank explained, stepping forward with a smile. "We've prepared a feast that represents both our cultures, and we'd love for you to join us in celebrating." As they gathered around the table, Frank felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. The laughter and chatter of the Aruans mixed with the delicious aromas of the food, creating an atmosphere of warmth and camaraderie. Troya raised her glass, a beautiful luminescent drink made from Kali fruit and earth fruits they had gathered together. "To friendship and unity," she proclaimed. "To friendship and unity," the guests echoed, lifting their glasses in a toast. As they began to share stories and food, Frank felt a sense of joy unlike any he had experienced before. They laughed, shared memories, and discussed their different cultures, each story deepening the bonds they were forming. Frank served the pumpkin pie, watching as the Aruans took their first bites. Their expressions ranged from surprise to delight, and he couldn't help but grin at their reactions. "This is incredible," one of them exclaimed. "I've never tasted anything like this." "I'm glad you like it," Frank replied, his heart swelling with pride. "It's one of my favorites from Earth." As the evening continued, Frank felt a sense of hope and fulfillment blossom within him. This gathering was more than just a meal. It was a celebration of connection, a melding of cultures that showcased the beauty of diversity and the power of friendship. As they shared stories and laughter, Frank glanced at Troya, who was animatedly discussing the significance of their new holiday with their guests. In that moment, he realized that they were not only creating a new tradition, but also building a bridge between their worlds, a bridge that would strengthen ties and foster understanding for generations to come. As the night wore on, Frank felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought him to this moment. He had not only found a friend in Troya, but had also discovered a new sense of purpose in building connections between their cultures. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, hand in hand.